I was cut from my daughter's wedding guest list, then learned she cheated her groom the night before. I stood in the kitchen, my hands gripping the edge of the counter tightly. My knuckles turned white as Jillian sat at the table, calm as ever, sipping her tea like nothing was wrong. She didn't even look up when she spoke, just dropped the bomb like it was nothing. "By the way, Camille's wedding is family only," she said. "She thinks it'll be less awkward if you don't attend." My stomach twisted, and I felt the air get sucked out of the room. Less awkward for whom? I'd been there for every moment of that girl's life, every scraped knee, every late-night fever when I sat by her bed. With a cold cloth, every ballet class I paid for even when money was tight, every breakup I talked her through when she thought the world was ending. Now my own daughter's wedding. The day I'd dreamed about since she was little. The day I'd pictured myself walking her down the aisle. And I wasn't even on the list. "I'm her father," I said, my voice low and shaky, like I was trying to convince myself it was still true. Jillian just shrugged, her eyes still on her tea. "You're overreacting. It's just a wedding. Just a wedding. My daughter's wedding." The words hit me like a punch, and I wanted to yell, to flip the table, to make her feel how deep that cut me. But I didn't. I swallowed it down like I always did, and stared at her, waiting for something, anything that showed she cared. Nothing came. She took another sip, and that was it. I turned away, my chest tight, and walked to the living room. My laptop was sitting on the couch, and before I knew it, I was typing Santorini. A week-long trip far away from this house, from Jillian shrugs, from the sting of being erased by my own kid. I didn't tell Jillian what I was doing. She didn't deserve to know. I booked the flight, the villa, the whole thing, my fingers moving fast, like I was racing to get out before I broke down. When it was done, I leaned back and let out a long breath. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg to be included. If they didn't want me there, fine. I'd go where I could breathe again. The next morning, I packed a bag. Nothing fancy, just some shirts, shorts, my old sandals, and left a note on the counter, gone for a week. "Don't call unless it's an emergency." I didn't even look back when I shut the door. The drive to the airport felt like shedding a weight I'd been carrying for years. I kept replaying Jillian's words in my head, less awkward, and every time, it made my jaw clench. How could it be awkward to have me there? I raised Camille. I was the one who stayed up all night building that dollhouse she wanted for Christmas when she was 6, the one who drove her to every recital, the one who told her she was enough when some jerk broke her heart in high school. Now, what was I? The outsider. By the time I boarded the plane, I was done thinking about it. The hum of the engines drowned out the noise in my head, and I stared out the window as the ground fell away. Santorini was waiting. Blue water, white houses, a place where I could be something other than the guy who wasn't good enough for his own family. I didn't know what I'd find there, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let them ruin me. Not Jillian, not Camille, not anyone. I'd spent too long being the one who held it all together while they took me for granted. As the plane climbed higher, I felt something shift inside me. Not peace, not yet, but a spark of something new. I wasn't on their list, but I was still here, and I was going to figure out what that meant, one day at a time, starting with that first step off the plane into a world that didn't know how bad I was hurting. I stepped out of the taxi and onto the stone path leading to my villa. The warm Santorini sun hit my face as the driver hauled my bag behind me. The Aegean Sea stretched out below, sparkling like it was showing off just for me, and the whitewashed walls of the cliffside glowed against the blue sky. I could smell the salt in the air, mixed with something sweet, maybe flowers, maybe just freedom. The guy at the check-in desk handed me a key and a glass of champagne, smiling like he knew I needed it. I took it, nodded, and walked to my room, pushing open the door to a view that stopped me cold. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the ocean, and a little balcony hung right over the edge of the cliff. I dropped my bag and stepped outside, the breeze tugging at my shirt. Back home, Camille was probably fussing over centerpieces, those fancy ones Jillian kept texting her about. The ones I'd overheard them planning months ago when I was still part of their world. Jillian was likely posing for selfies at the bridal shower, flashing that smile she'd perfected over years of making everything about her. And me? I was here, 1,000 miles away, with nothing but the sound of waves and the cold fizz of champagne in my hand. I kicked off my shoes, propped my feet up on the balcony railing, and stared out at the water. It was quiet, quieter than my life had been in years. No arguments, no demands, no one asking me to fix something or pay for something or just shut up and take it. I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture of my bare feet against the endless blue, and posted it online with a caption, "Silence looks good on me." I didn't think much of it, just a little jab, maybe, or a way to mark the moment. Within minutes, my cousin Theo popped up in the comments with a string of laughing emojis and a living your best life, huh? My sister Rosa messaged me almost right away. Wait, weren't you supposed to be at the wedding? I didn't answer her, not yet. I wasn't ready to explain how I'd been cut out, how my own daughter decided I didn't belong at the biggest day of her life. From Jillian and Camille? Nothing. No texts, no calls, no likes on the photo. I waited a bit, sipping my drink, watching the screen, half expecting something. Oh, where are you? Or even a hope you're okay. But the silence from them was louder than the sea. I set the phone down and leaned back in the chair, letting the sun warm my face. Good. Let them keep their silence. I didn't need it. I waved at a waiter passing by and ordered another drink, something stronger this time, a whiskey on the rocks. The ice clinked in the glass when he brought it, and I took a slow sip, feeling the burn slide down my throat. The villa was small but perfect. White walls, a bed with crisp sheets, a little table where I could sit and watch the world go by. I didn't have a plan for the week, and that was the best part. No schedules, no obligations, just me and this place. I thought about home for a second, about the house I'd left behind, the kitchen where Jillian had dropped that news like it was nothing, the empty spot where I used to park my car. Then I pushed it out of my head. They were busy with their wedding, their drama, their life that didn't include me. Fine, I'd make my own. The sun started dipping lower, painting the sky orange and pink, and I sat there, glass in hand, watching it sink into the water. My phone buzzed again. Theo probably, or Rosa checking in. I ignored it. This was my time, my view, my peace. I wasn't going to let anyone pull me back into the mess I'd escaped. The whiskey was smooth, the breeze was cool, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to be anything for anybody. I finished the drink, set the glass down, and leaned my head back, closing my eyes. The sound of the waves rolled in, steady and slow, and I let it carry me away. Whatever they were doing back home, it didn't matter. The view was better from here, and I was going to soak in every second of it. I was 3 days into my Santorini escape, sprawled out on a cushioned lounger by the villa's infinity pool, when the piece I'd built started to crack. The sun was high, the sky clear, and I'd just settled in with a cold beer, the condensation dripping onto my hand as I watched the water shimmer below. Everything was perfect, the kind of quiet I hadn't felt in years, the kind that let me breathe without someone needing something from me. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, expecting a text from Rosa or another dumb joke from Theo. It was Theo, all right, but the message wasn't funny. Call me a sap, you're not going to believe this. My stomach tightened a little, but I brushed it off. Whatever it was, it could wait. I took a sip of my beer and leaned back, closing my eyes against the glare. Then it buzzed again. 3 missed calls from Jillian, one after another, lighting up the screen like a warning. Before I could process that, Camille's name popped up with a call. I let it ring out, watching the seconds tick by until it stopped. Then Jillian again, twice more. My phone was turning into a war zone, and I just sat there, staring at it, the beer suddenly tasting flat in my mouth. What the hell was going on? I didn't want to know. Not yet. Not when I'd finally found a corner of the world that didn't feel like it was crushing me. I muted the phone, flipped it face down on the table, and rolled over on the lounger, trying to get back to the calm I'd had 5 minutes ago. The pool water lapped gently against the edge, and I focused on that, on the breeze brushing my skin, on the distant hum of a boat somewhere out at sea. But my mind wouldn't settle. Why were they calling now, after days of nothing? No texts, no hey, where'd you go? Suddenly, they couldn't stop blowing up my phone. I picked it up again, just to check, and saw the notifications piling up. Voicemails from Jillian, a text from Camille that just said, Dad, with a question mark, even a missed call from my brother-in-law Colin, who never calls unless he's drunk or in trouble. It was like they'd all remembered I existed at the exact same moment, and I didn't know if I should feel angry or smug or just tired. I set the phone back down, harder this time, and grabbed my beer, finishing it in one long gulp. If I wasn't important enough to be at Camille's wedding, why should they be important enough to ruin my day? I'd spent years being the guy who picked up the phone, who dropped everything to fix their messes. Jillian's fights, Camille's crises, Colin's dumb decisions. Not this time. I waved at the waiter walking by and ordered another beer, my voice steady even though my chest felt tight. He brought it quickly, and I cracked it open, the hiss cutting through the quiet. I took a sip and stared out at the horizon, trying to push the buzzing out of my head. They'd made their choice when they left me off the list, Jillian with her shrugs, Camille with her silence. They didn't get to decide now that I mattered. I pictured them back home, probably scrambling after something went wrong, thinking good old Dad would swoop in like always. Maybe the flowers didn't show up, or the cake was steaming, or someone said something stupid at the rehearsal dinner. Whatever it wasn't my problem. I leaned back, the sun warming my face, and let my mind wander to simpler things. The taste of the beer, the way the water looked like glass, the fact that I didn't have to be anywhere or do anything. My phone buzzed again, vibrating against the table, but I didn't even flinch. Let it ring. Let them leave their frantic messages. I wasn't their safety net anymore. I finished the beer, set the empty can down, and stretched out on the lounger, my arms behind my head. The pool sparkled in front of me, and the sea stretched out forever beyond it. This was my space, my time, and they weren't welcome here. I closed my eyes, the warmth sinking into me, and decided I'd deal with them later. Maybe tomorrow, maybe never. For now, I was done. The phone could buzz all it wanted. I wasn't picking it up. I woke up to the soft sound of waves crashing below my villa. The morning sun sneaked through the curtains, warming the room. It was day 4 in Santorini, and I'd started to feel like a different man, lighter, like I'd left more than just a suitcase behind. I stretched, rolled out of bed, and padded barefoot to the balcony, coffee in hand, letting the sea air wake me up properly. My phone had been off since yesterday's barrage of calls, and I wasn't in a hurry to turn it back on. Whatever mess was waiting for me could stay there. I was halfway through my coffee, watching a fishing boat bob on the horizon, when I finally caved and powered it up, just to check the time, I told myself. The screen lit up with notifications, but one stood out, a long text from Camille, sent at 3 a.m. her time. "Dad, please call me. I messed up." That was it. No details, no explanation, just those words staring back at me. I set the phone down and took a deep breath, my gut telling me something big had gone down, but I wasn't ready to dive in yet. I finished my coffee, slow and deliberate, letting the bitter taste ground me. Then I scrolled back through the missed calls and voicemails. Jillian, Colin, even Aunt Noelle, but I didn't listen to them. Instead, I called Theo. He picked up on the second ring, his voice loud and amused. "Man, you picked the perfect week to disappear," he said, laughing. "That wedding? Total disaster." I leaned against the railing, the phone pressed to my ear, and listened as he laid it out. Turns out, Camille and Bryce didn't even make it to the cake cutting before it all fell apart. Bryce found some texts on her phone from her ex, late-night messages from the night before the wedding, and lost it. They fought right there in front of everyone, voices raised, guests shifting awkwardly in their seats. Then Bryce's mom jumped in, yelling at Jillian, saying she'd pushed Camille into the marriage or some nonsense like that. Colin, true to form, got sloppy drunk and started shouting at the DJ for playing the wrong song. Theo said half the guests bailed before the first dance, and the rest just sat there, watching the chaos like a bad movie. No speeches, no sparkler send-off, no happy ending. Just a big, ugly mess. I stood there, the sun climbing higher, and felt a strange mix of nothing. No shock, no sadness, just a blank space where I thought I'd feel something. "So yeah," Theo finished, still chuckling, "you didn't miss much." I thanked him, hung up, and stared at Camille's text again. I messed up. Yeah, she did. But it wasn't my job to fix it, not this time. I could picture it so clearly. Jillian spinning around, trying to smooth things over with that fake smile, Camille crying into her bouquet, everyone looking for someone to blame. And me? I wasn't there. They'd made sure of that. I set the phone down and walked back inside, grabbing my sandals and a towel. I didn't call her back. I didn't call Jillian either. Instead, I booked a massage at the villa's spa, something with hot stones, the kind of thing I'd never bothered with before. The lady at the desk smiled and said I'd feel like a new man after. Good, I thought. That's what I want. The massage room smelled like lavender, and the table was warm against my back as I lay there, the therapist's hands kneading the knots out of my shoulders. I closed my eyes and let my mind drift, not to the wedding, not to Camille's tears or Jillian's excuses, but to the sound of the sea outside, the way the air felt clean here. They'd had their fairy tale day, or at least they tried, and it blew up in their faces. I wasn't smug about it, but I wasn't sorry either. I'd spent years being the one who held everything together, paying the bills, calming the fights, making sure everyone got through. The one time I stepped away, it all crumbled. Maybe that should have made me feel needed, but it didn't. It just made me glad I was here, not there. The massage ended, and I walked out looser, lighter, the sun still high overhead. I grabbed a gyro from a stand down the street, greasy, warm, perfect, and sat on a bench overlooking the water, eating slowly. My phone stayed quiet in my pocket. I didn't check it again. Whatever they wanted, it could wait. They'd figure it out, or they wouldn't. Either way, I was done running back. I was sitting on the balcony that evening, the sky turning a deep purple as the sun dipped below the horizon, when my phone lit up again. The air was cool, and I had a glass of red wine in my hand, the kind the waiter recommended, dry and strong, the way I liked it. I'd spent the day walking the cliffs, letting the sun burn away the last bits of tension in my chest, and I was finally starting to feel like this trip wasn't just an escape but something more. Then Jillian's name flashed on the screen, 3 voicemails back to back. Left sometime that afternoon. I sighed, set the wine down, and stared at it for a minute, debating whether to listen. Curiosity won out. I hit play on the first one, and her voice came through, sharp and familiar, like she was SC Bones me through the phone. Look, I don't know where you are, but this is ridiculous. If you'd just been here, maybe Camille wouldn't have felt so cornered. Call me back. The second one was softer, but still dripping with that tone she used when she wanted me to feel guilty. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't think it'd turn out like this. Just, we need to talk. The third was shorter, clipped, like she was annoyed I hadn't jumped at the first two. Fine, keep ignoring us, but this isn't helping anyone. I leaned back in the chair, letting the words sink in. Cornered. If I'd been there. So now it was my fault. My absence was the reason their perfect little wedding imploded. I almost laughed, but it caught in my throat, turning into a bitter snort. She was good at that, twisting things so I'd feel like the bad guy for not being where they didn't want me in the first place. Then Camille tried FaceTiming me. Her name popped up, the little ringtone jarring against the quiet. I watched it buzz, her picture flashing, that old photo from her high school graduation when she still hugged me without thinking twice. I hit decline and set the phone face down. My chest tightened, but I pushed it down with a sip of wine, letting the taste burn it away. They didn't get to do this, not now, not after they'd made it clear I wasn't part of their plan. A few minutes later, a text came through from Aunt Noelle, Jillian's sister, the one who always acted like she knew everything. Hey, just so you know, things might have gone differently if you'd been here to keep the balance. Camille's a mess. Call her. Keep the balance. That's what they called it. Me being the one who stayed calm, who fixed the fights, who paid the bills and drove the car and made sure everyone got through whatever mess they'd made. I'd been the peacekeeper for years. The guy who didn't yell back when Jillian snapped, who didn't walk out when Camille stopped saying thank you. Now, when I finally stepped away, they realized they needed me. Too late. I finished the wine and poured another glass, the bottle clinking against the rim. The sea was dark now, just a shimmer of moonlight on the waves, and I sat there, letting the quiet wrap around me. I could have called back. I could have picked up for Camille, listened to her cry, told her it'd be okay like I always did. I could have answered Jillian, let her talk me into coming home to sort out their chaos. But I didn't. For the first time, I didn't feel that pull, that itch to be the one who made it right. I liked this, the distance, the freedom, the way I didn't owe them anything anymore. I thought about the wedding, what Theo had told me, Bryce storming off, Jillian scrambling, Camille breaking down. I could see it so clearly, them looking around, expecting me to step in, to smooth it over like I'd done 100 times before. But I wasn't there, and they didn't know how to handle it. Good. Let them figure it out. I stood up, stretched, and walked back inside, leaving the phone on the table. The villa was cool and quiet, the bed waiting with its crisp white sheets. I didn't need to be their hero. Not tonight, not ever again. I climbed in, the wine still warm in my system, and closed my eyes. They'd made their choice when they left me off that list, and I'd made mine when I got on that plane. If they needed me now, they'd have to wait. I was done being the fallback guy. Sleep came easy, and I didn't dream about them at all. I was sitting at a little seaside restaurant that night, the kind with wobbly wooden tables and lanterns flickering in the breeze, when my phone rang. The air smelled like salt and grilled fish, and I had a plate of fresh seafood in front of me. Octopus, shrimp, some kind of white fish I couldn't name, all drizzled with olive oil and lemon. I'd spent the day swimming in the clear water off a black sand beach, letting the waves knock me around until I was too tired to think. Now, with a glass of cold white wine in my hand, I felt good, better than good, like I was finally settling into this new version of myself. The phone buzzed against the table, and I saw Rosa's name flash up. I almost didn't answer. Didn't want anything breaking this moment, but something told me to pick up. Hey, I said, leaning back in the chair. She didn't even say hello, just started laughing so hard I could barely make out her words. Oh my God, you missed a show, she finally managed, her voice cracking with glee. And honestly, it was beautiful watching them realize what life is like without you keeping everything glued together. I set the wine down, a grin tugging at my mouth, and listened as she spilled it all. After the wedding fell apart, things got worse. Camille had a full meltdown in front of the guests, tears streaming, mascara running, when Bryce walked out, leaving her standing there in her big white dress. Jillian tried to play it off, flitting around with that tight smile, but Rosa said you could see the panic in her eyes. She kept looking for someone to fix it, someone to take charge, and then it hit her. The only one who ever did that was me, and I was 3,000 miles away. Rosa cackled through the phone, painting the picture, Colin slurring insults at the bartender, Noelle whispering loud enough for everyone to hear that it was Jillian's fault, the DJ packing up early because no one was dancing. They didn't know what to do without you, Rosa said, catching her breath. It was like watching ants when you kick the hill. I speared a piece of octopus with my fork and chewed slowly, letting her words sink in. I wasn't surprised, not really. I'd always been the glue, the one who stayed steady when everyone else lost it. Birthday parties, holidays, fights over money. I was the guy who made sure the lights stayed on and the yelling stopped. Now, without me, they'd crumbled. I didn't feel sorry for them. I felt satisfied maybe, like karma had finally showed up right on time. Camille cried for an hour, Rosa went on. Jillian kept saying you should have been here, like that would have saved the day. But you know what? They didn't want you there until they needed you. She paused, then added, I'm proud of you for staying gone. I swallowed the food, the tangy lemon cutting through the richness, and took a sip of wine. Yeah, I said, my voice low. Me too. We talked a bit more about her kids, about the weather back home, then hung up. I sat there, the night settling around me, the sound of the waves mixing with the clink of dishes from the kitchen. The restaurant was half empty, just a few locals chatting over beers, and I liked how small it felt, how far away from everything I'd left. I pictured Camille in her dress, sobbing, and Jillian spinning her excuses, and for the first time, it didn't hurt. It didn't pull me back. It just made me glad I was here, eating this food, drinking this wine, living this life they didn't get to touch. I finished the meal slowly, savoring every bite, the shrimp salty and sweet, the fish flaky and soft. The waiter brought me another glass of wine without me asking, and I nodded my thanks. The bill came, and I paid it with cash, leaving a big tip because I could. I walked back to the villa under a sky full of stars, the path winding along the cliff, my sandals scuffing the stones. When I got in, I kicked them off, poured one last glass from the bottle on the counter, and stepped onto the balcony. The sea was black now, endless, and I stood there, letting the breeze cool my skin. Rosa's laugh echoed in my head, and I smiled. Really smiled, the kind that reaches your eyes. I went to bed with that feeling, the sheets cool against me, and slept deeper than I had in years. They'd figured out what I was worth, but I'd figured it out too, and I wasn't giving it back. I woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside the villa, the kind of soft morning noise that felt like the world was stretching awake with me. The sun was just peeking over the horizon, casting a golden line across the sea, and I lay there for a minute, staring at the ceiling, letting the quiet settle in. It was day 6 in Santorini, and I'd gotten used to this, waking up without an alarm, without someone banging on the door or calling my name. I rolled out of bed, made a pot of coffee, and took it out to the balcony, the warm mug in my hand chasing off the early chill. I was halfway through my first sip when I decided to check my phone. Not because I wanted to, but because I figured I couldn't dodge them forever. There was an email from Jillian waiting, sent late last night. No subject line, no dear or hey, just her words dumped onto the screen like she couldn't be bothered with niceties. You've made your point. Come home so we can talk. I read it twice, letting it sink in, and felt my jaw tighten. Made my point? Like this was some game, like I'd flown halfway across the world just to teach her a lesson. No apology, no I was wrong, just that same old tone, like I was a kid who'd stormed off and needed to get over it. I set the mug down and stared out at the water, the waves rolling in steady and slow. She didn't get it. She still thought this was about her, about them, about fixing what they'd broken. Then there was a text from Camille, a long one, sent an hour after Jillian's email. I opened it and her words spilled out, Dad, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I let Mom and Bryce's family talk me into the family-only thing, and I was stupid. I should have fought for you to be there, please call me, I hate this. I read it again, slower this time, and felt the flicker of something, maybe guilt, maybe sadness, but it faded quickly. She was sorry now, sure, after the wedding crashed and burned, after she realized she couldn't handle the fallout without me. But where was that sorry when she was making the list? When she let Jillian shrug me off like I didn't matter? I didn't text back. I didn't call. I typed a reply to Jillian instead, short and sharp, extended my stay. I hit send, turned the phone off, and leaned back in the chair, the coffee still warm in my hands. Let them sit with that. Let them stew in the silence they'd handed me first. I finished the coffee and got up, grabbing my sandals and a light jacket. I didn't have a plan, just wanted to walk, to feel the ground under me and the air on my face. The streets of Oya were waking up, shopkeepers sweeping their steps, tourists snapping pictures of the white domes against the blue sky. I wandered through the alleys, the cobblestones uneven under my feet, and thought about how they still didn't see it. Jillian thought I'd come running back because she said so. Camille thought a late apology would erase the sting. They didn't understand that this wasn't a tantrum. It was me finally choosing myself. I stopped at a little cafe, ordered a pastry and another coffee, and sat outside watching people pass by. The pastry was flaky, sweet with honey and nuts, and I ate it slowly, letting the crumbs fall where they wanted. Back home, they were probably pacing, Jillian muttering about how stubborn I was, Camille biting her nails like she did when she was stressed. I could almost hear them. He'll come around. He always does. Except I wasn't. Not this time. I paid the bill and kept walking, the sun climbing higher, warming the stones around me. I found a spot overlooking the caldera, just a low wall and a drop to the sea, and sat there, my legs dangling over the edge. The wind picked up, tugging at my hair, and I closed my eyes, letting it wash over me. They'd made their bed, Jillian with her tea and her shrugs, Camille with her guest list and her tears. Now they could lie in it. I wasn't their crutch anymore. I got up, dusted off my hands, and headed back to the villa, the day stretching out ahead of me. I'd swim later, maybe grab dinner somewhere new. My phone stayed off in my pocket, and I didn't check it again. They could wait. I'd spent years jumping when they called. Now it was my turn to live, and they'd have to figure out how to do it without me. I woke up early again, the Santorini sun slipping through the shutters, painting stripes of light across the floor. It was my 7th day here, and I'd started to love these quiet mornings. Coffee brewing, the sea whispering outside. No one pulling me out of bed with a problem to solve. I took my mug and stepped onto the balcony, the air still cool from the night, and sat there, letting the warmth of the cup seep into my hands. The view was the same as always. Blue water, white cliffs. But it felt different today. Like I was seeing it clearer, maybe because I was starting to see myself clearer too. I sipped the coffee, slow and steady, and let my mind wander, not to Jillian's emails or Camille's texts, but further back, to all the years I'd spent fading into the background of their lives. It hit me as I sat there, the waves crashing below, how long I'd been invisible. I thought about my birthdays, how they'd forget until the last minute, Jillian tossing me a card she grabbed from the gas station, Camille saying, "Oh yeah, happy birthday, Dad," like it was an afterthought. I remembered the way they'd introduce me at events. "This is just Dad," like I was a piece of furniture, something you don't notice until it's gone. Jillian had a way of filling every room, her laugh loud, her stories big, and Camille picked it up young, learning to shine while I stood behind them, quiet, steady, paying the bills. I'd driven across town more times than I could count, picking Camille up from dance when it rained, fixing Jillian's car when it broke down, hauling boxes when they decided to redecorate on a whim. I'd paid for it all too. Ballet shoes, prom dresses, that fancy dinner when Camille graduated, the one where they thanked the waiter more than me. And the chaos. God, the chaos. Every fight they had, every time Jillian stormed out or Camille slammed her door, I was the one who calmed it down, who talked them back to normal, who made sure the house didn't fall apart. They'd laugh about it later. "Oh, Dad's so boring, always so serious." And I'd smile, thinking that's just how it was. I leaned back in the chair, the coffee going cold, and stared out at the sea. Boring, that's what they called it. Me keeping everything together, me making sure they had what they needed. I'd been the backdrop to their lives, the guy who held the frame so they could paint whatever picture they wanted. And what did I get? A shrug, a less awkward excuse, a guest list with my name scratched off. I set the mug down and stood up, walking to the edge of the balcony, the stone rough under my hands. I thought about the wedding, how they'd planned it without me, how they'd laughed and posed and never once asked what I thought. I'd imagined that day for years, walking Camille down the aisle, giving a toast, feeling like I mattered. But they didn't see it that way. They saw me as the guy who'd show up anyway, who'd fix it if it went wrong, who'd take the hit and keep quiet. Not anymore. I turned back inside, grabbed my sandals, and headed out. The streets of Oya were waking up again, vendors calling out, the smell of bread drifting from a bakery. I walked with no direction, just letting my feet carry me through the whitewashed alleys, the sun climbing higher. I passed a little shop selling paintings, bright colors, scenes of the sea, and stopped, watching the artist dab at a canvas. He didn't notice me, just kept working, lost in his own world. I envied that, being in the middle of something, not just holding it up for someone else. I kept going, the cobblestones warm under my soles, and found a bench overlooking the water. I sat there, the wind tugging at my shirt, and let it all spill out in my head. The years of being the backdrop, the way they'd taken me for granted, the way I'd let them. It wasn't just the wedding, it was everything. I'd given them my time, my money, my patience, and they'd given me nothing back, not even a seat at the table. I stayed there a long time, the sun moving overhead, until my stomach growled and I realized I hadn't eaten. I got up, found a taverna, and ordered a plate of grilled fish and a beer. The food was simple, good, and I ate alone, watching the sea. I wasn't the backdrop here. I was the one eating, drinking, living, and I wasn't going back to that old role. Not for Jillian, not for Camille, not for anyone. I woke up to the sound of the sea again, gentle and steady, like it was calling me out of bed. It was my 8th day in Santorini, and I felt different, like the weight I'd carried for years was finally starting to lift, not all at once, but piece by piece. I made coffee, same as always, and took it to the balcony, the morning sun soft on my face. The air smelled clean, salty, and I sipped slowly, letting the warmth wake me up. Today felt open, like I could do anything, and I decided to head to the beach, somewhere quiet, away from the crowds. I grabbed a towel, my sandals, and a bottle of water, then walked down the winding path from the villa, the stones smooth under my feet. The beach was small, tucked between cliffs, with dark sand that glittered in the light. Hardly anyone was there, just a few locals and a woman sitting alone near the water, reading a book. I dropped my stuff, kicked off my shoes and waded in, the waves cool against my legs. I swam for a while, letting the current tug at me, feeling strong and free in a way I hadn't in years. When I came back to shore, dripping and salty, the woman looked up from her book and smiled, a small, easy smile, like we'd already met. "Good swim?" she asked, her voice warm, accented with something I couldn't place. "Yeah," I said, grabbing my towel. "Best part of the day so far." She laughed, and we started talking. Nothing big, just simple stuff about the island, the water, the way the sun hit the cliffs. Her name was Serena, a widow traveling alone, and she had this calm about her, like she'd seen enough to know what mattered. We sat there on the sand, the waves lapping close, and swapped stories. She told me about raising her son, how he'd moved off to university and left her with an empty house. I told her about Camille, not the wedding, not yet, just the early days, the recitals, the late-night talks. We both knew what it was like to pour everything into a kid, and then watch them build a life without you. There was no pressure in it, no need to impress, just two people sharing a moment. The sun climbed higher, and we decided to grab a drink at a little shack up the beach. We ordered wine, white and crisp, and sat at a rickety table, the sea stretching out in front of us. She laughed at my dumb jokes, and I liked how her eyes crinkled when she did. We talked more, about how exhausting it is to always be the responsible one, how you can love someone and still need to let go. I didn't tell her about the guest list or Jillian's emails, but I didn't have to. She got it. The quiet ache of being left behind, the relief of finding your own space. The afternoon slipped away, easy and slow, and as the sun started to dip, we walked back to the water, wine glasses in hand, and stood there, barefoot in the shallows, watching the sky turn orange and pink, then purple. Neither of us said much, just let the silence sit between us, comfortable, real. For the first time in forever, I wasn't waiting for someone to need me, wasn't aching to be seen. I was just there, with her, with the sea, and it was enough. When it got dark, we said goodnight. No promises, no plans, just a nod and a smile. I walked back to the villa alone, the night air cool against my skin, feeling lighter than I had in days. I poured one last glass of wine and stepped onto the balcony, the stars bright overhead. I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture of myself, sunglasses on, wine in hand, the ocean dark behind me, and posted it with a caption, "Turns out overreacting feels like peace." I didn't check for likes or messages, just set the phone down and leaned against the railing. Serena's laugh echoed in my head and I smiled, sipping slowly. This was what I'd been missing. Not the big moments, not the thank yous I never got, but this. A day that was mine, a memory I didn't have to fight for. I wasn't sorry for leaving, wasn't sorry for staying. I finished the wine, the glass cold in my hand, and went inside. The bed was waiting, and I climbed in, the sheets soft against me. Sleep came fast and I dreamed of the sea, not of home, not of them, just the waves and the open sky. I woke up on my last day in Santorini with the sun already high, streaming through the villa's windows like it was urging me to get moving. I'd slept hard, deep, the kind of sleep that leaves you feeling new. My flight home was that night, and I could have spent the day packing, worrying about what I'd find when I got back, but I didn't. I made coffee, took it to the balcony, and stood there, watching the sea sparkle under the morning light. 9 days here, and I wasn't the same guy who'd stepped off that plane, hurt, angry, running from a guest list that didn't have my name. Now I felt solid, like I'd built something out here, something they couldn't touch. I finished the coffee and decided to hike. One last taste of the island before I left. I grabbed my sandals, a bottle of water, and headed out, following a trail along the cliffs. The path was rough, winding up through rocks and scrubby bushes, the sun hot on my back. I walked steadily, my breath even, feeling the burn in my legs and liking it. The view opened up at the top, blue water stretching forever, white houses clinging to the hills, and I sat on a flat stone, wiping sweat from my forehead. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I pulled it out. Camille again, another missed call, the third that week. I hadn't answered any of them, hadn't listened to the voicemails piling up from her and Jillian. I stared at her name on the screen, then turned the phone off. I wasn't ready, not yet. I got back to the villa by noon, showered, and packed slowly, folding my shirts, tucking my sandals into the bag. I'd heard from Rosa a few days ago, Jillian had moved into Aunt Noel's to give space, whatever that meant. Camille was still calling, still texting, but I didn't know them my time. I sat on the bed, bag zipped, and left her one voicemail, short, calm, my voice steady. When you're ready to talk like a daughter and not a PR crisis, let me know. That was it. I hung up, grabbed my stuff, and checked out, the taxi waiting to take me to the airport. The flight home was long, but I didn't mind. I watched the clouds out the window, the world shrinking below, and felt a quiet kind of strength, like I'd claimed something back out there. When I landed, the air was colder, sharper, and I drove home in the dark. The house was empty when I walked in. Jillian's stuff was gone, her coats, her shoes, the clutter she always left on the counter. It didn't feel lonely, it felt clean. I dropped my bag, poured a glass of water, and stood in the kitchen, the silence thick around me. The next day, I dug out my old wedding suit, the one I'd planned to wear for Camille, the one I'd pressed and hung up months ago. It felt heavy in my hands, like a memory I didn't need anymore. I drove it to a charity shop downtown, handed it over with a nod, and walked out lighter. Back home, I found a flyer for a hiking group stuck in the mailbox, local guys who met up weekends to hit the trails. I called the number, signed up for the next one, and marked it on the calendar. That night, I cooked myself dinner, steak, simple, the way I liked it, and ate at the table, no TV, no phone, just me and the food. I thought about the wedding, Theo's stories, Rose's laugh, the way it all fell apart. I hadn't missed a thing. They'd had their day, their chaos, and I'd had mine. 9 days of sun and sea and peace. If they thought I was overreacting, let them. I wasn't coming back to the old me, the guy who waited for them to see him, who fixed their messes and took their shrugs. I washed the dishes slowly, carefully, the water warm on my hands. The house was mine now, not theirs, not anymore. I went to bed early, the sheets cool, and slept without dreaming. The next morning, I woke up to rain tapping the windows, soft and steady. I made coffee, sat by the glass, and watched it fall. Camille would call again, maybe. Jillian might show up, bags in hand, expecting me to take her back. But I wasn't waiting for them. I had my hikes, my quiet, my life. They'd underestimated me, and I was fine with that. I wasn't the backdrop anymore. I was the whole damn story.